Hello, this is Julie with Pink Mud Art Studio, and we are painting the Magic Pumpkin today. We're going to start with the tracer, and the best thing I can tell you is with your carbon paper, you're going to want the shiny side down. It's the shiny side that's going to make the mark on your canvas. We're using an 8 by 10 canvas here for our art kits. So you place the carbon paper, make sure it's covering the canvas. And this particular canvas, what I did was I just drew a line so that I had a straight line on the bottom part of the pumpkin and the side of the pumpkin. And then this corner matches up to that corner. So the way I do it is I feel where the corner is and I place this edge on the corner. And then I feel where the corner is down here and I place that edge on the corner. So that edge, and that should make a straight line for both sides. Does that make sense? And since the carbon paper is covering the canvas, I don't have anything to tape down. So I'm going to make sure that I hold my paper from sliding around when I'm tracing. So I'm using my little pencil, and we'll go ahead and pull this a smidge over. Okay. So we'll start with the pumpkin. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the lines on the round part of the pumpkin first. And this shouldn't be a line right here that goes through the stem. If you draw it, it doesn't matter because we're going to paint over all of this. So it really doesn't matter, but I'm just letting you know that these lines are underneath the other lines. that's it for the tracing part. The next part is we're going to go into the painting. Okay, we're ready for step one. I'm going to start with my bigger flat brush, which is going to be my 1/2 inch flat. And I'm going to start by mixing a color. So I have a little bit of a teal color here, but I want it to have a little bit more of a bluish tone to it. So I'm going to mix, since it's almost the color I want, teal, I'm just going to mix a little bit more of the blue in it. And I'm going to start in a couple of the corners here, but at the same time I'm trying not to paint my table. I have, but it's okay. Okay, so we're going to go around the pumpkin, and it's okay if we cover up the vines. I would try to just go around the pumpkin though, so we're not covering up the pumpkin. But you want to make sure you're getting enough paint in between the vines. Now, as we get closer, I want this to be lighter and I want this to be darker again. So I'm going to scoop up some white, and maybe on just a little edge of this, I'm going to grab some lighter color. I want this to be where the light source is. I'm going to go around the pumpkin here. And if you touch the edge, if you go into the pumpkin, it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is fun art. And we're going to blend the lighter into the darker, so you can't really see where it begins or ends. And then this darker is going to be down in this corner again, maybe with a little bit more blue. So just don't even have to rinse your brush off, just pick that color up and mix it on the board. I'm doing crisscross, back and forth, little X's. See the difference in the colors. So we're going to grab some of this lighter color again and mix it as we're placing it. We're mixing it. So crisscross, back and forth, kind of blending. I'm going to grab some direct white and place white as kind of my final mixing color here. So we have more of a lighter color, lighter background color coming from this corner. So this is our light source coming from this direction. A little bit more white. And see how I just keep working it back and forth and back and forth. And I want it to be fairly soft because it is our, like, kind of our sky field background. Okay, I like that. That looks good. I'm going to give a little bit of a magenta in this. A little bit of the blue and magenta, kind of a purpley with white. Okay, so more of a purple color down here at the bottom. So I mixed a little bit of magenta and a little bit of the ultramarine blue, and I grabbed a little bit of white. And I'm going over those colors because I do want it to have a little more of a purple color, purple background color. And then more white right here. And if you lose your stems, it's okay. We just want them to come into this airy background area. Okay, and if you need a little bit of a touch of water, to blend it. If your paint is getting too thick, you can soften up your brush. Okay. I'm just going to kind of step it back away from me so I can see it. Okay, this area right through here needs a little more color because it's a little see-through there. I can see some of the white canvas, so I'm just trying to thicken up the paint there. Okay. And I did a little bit more white to lighten it a little bit more. I don't want this area to be too dark. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and wipe off our brush on our paper towel. And we're going to switch colors, so we need to rinse it out. And just lightly pat it dry on the paper towel. Okay, so we're going to have a pink pumpkin. So let's first just block in our color of our pumpkin. And we're just going to go all the way around. And if we get the base of the stem pink, it's okay because we're going to paint over that. And we can paint directly over our vines because they will be see-through with the pink. And we are just putting as much coverage as we can on here. This is a pretty pink. I like it. It's like a lipstick pink. I guess I would consider a lipstick pink. It could be cool or warm, but a cool pink to me is more like cotton candy. Lipstick pink is a little warmer pink, I guess. It goes with the teal and the. This is sort of a dark, almost periwinkle color in here. But I like creating our own colors. So you can use the thin edge of the brush to kind of create that sharp line. Unless you come close with the edge, but I would go back with the sharp edge to finalize that line part. So you want to load up enough paint on your brush, because the way a paintbrush works is it has like a pocket inside the brush where it holds paint. That's why you can paint and paint and paint and paint sometimes, because you have a lot of paint on the inside. So I'm getting a little bit of a push on the edge right here, and that's because I'm pressing this way and I had a pretty full paintbrush. So I don't really want an edge like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm just going to pull the edge in. But I have to be careful that I don't get pink on here, which I just did. Okay. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter and not so heavy-handed. Okay. A little more pink down here because it's a little white still. The canvas. This canvas is dry and it is just sucking up the paint. So we're just blocking in color. That's why I'm just going back and forth, no particular direction. You could go, you know, up and down to kind of give it that round look, but we're going to be painting so much on top of this that it doesn't really matter. And this design is going to be quite abstract because pumpkins aren't pink, first of all. And we're going to just shade in some different colors to this pumpkin. Okay, as we continue to kind of let the background dry, this part is still a little bit wet, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is rinse our brush off, and we're going to pick up a little bit of the magenta, but how do I explain? So we're going to kind of tap it out. I just want a little bit of the magenta. We're just going to brush it sideways with our brush, a little bit on where the lines are, to create a dimension to the pumpkin. I'm not painting a lot of pink yet. I'm just brushing the shape, the roundness of the shape, kind of scuffing that until it's dry, blended into the pink part. Do you see that? So I'm just barely getting enough pink on here. I'm touching where the line is with the tip of it. And then I have too much right there, so I don't want to blend it yet because the whole thing will turn pink. So I'm just kind of creating a shadow of darker pink. And we can do the darker pink all the way around the top here. Okay, now we're going to shift it. I'm going to turn my painting this way, so I'm still working this way. So because I'm going to explain this way. Because our view is looking straight at the pumpkin, the light's coming from behind the pumpkin. So we have shadow on this side and shadow on this side as the sunlight comes in. So I'm putting the shading now on this side of the line. Grabbing a little bit more of the magenta. And I'm brushing it with the side of my brush. Now remember, do not judge your painting until the very end, because we're doing a lot of background work, blocking work, and that's the hardest part in the painting process, is when it's like it doesn't look like the way you think it's supposed to look at the end, and so we start judging our paintings, and sometimes people give up because of that. But I do not want you to give up, and I don't want you to judge your painting until the very end, after we have all of our detail work finished on it, because that's when our paintings really come alive. So just continue working this color. We're working it, we're pushing it into the round lumps of this pumpkin. That's what we're creating, is a look, a roundness in this pumpkin. And you just kind of wiggle that brush back and forth, just a tiny bit of magenta on the tip of your brush. So kind of lay out the paint first along the line, then go back and rub in that shaded color. And then this top one's going to be pretty pretty dark all the way because it's just a little piece at the top here. Okay. Okay, how does that look? Looking pretty good. And you can kind of step back a little bit and just look at the shading that you have of your pumpkin. And you can kind of see where it might need a little bit more or a little bit less. And if you need to blend more, just work it back and forth, even with a dry brush. Okay. We're gonna work on some of our vines now. So as a pumpkin, we're gonna wipe off our brush and then rinse it in the rinse water. If you've ever grown pumpkins, the vines, once the pumpkin starts growing, the vines actually start drying up. So this pumpkin is huge, so we are going to paint the dried up vines, which give it that very autumn feel. So we're going to take our quarter-inch flat brush, or the smaller flat brush that you have, and we're going to grab some of the burnt sienna. Grab a good amount of it and find the lines where the stem sits on top of the pumpkin. And start pushing that paint up into the vine. So you have two ways you can go. You have where this vine actually split into two different areas. I'm using the thin part of my brush. I'm using the flat part of it a little bit, kind of in a diagonal way. I don't want to make the vine too big and too fat in any area. You want to kind of keep it a uniform size. This vine, this end curls up, so I'm going to slowly use my fingers to turn my brush as I'm using my arm to kind of push it around. And it ends up in a little point here. Do you see how I'm just twisting my fingers? I'm just turning my fingers. And I'm going to use barely a little tiny amount on this one. So this vine ended up turning a lot, kind of twisting on its own. It's just like a little stem. And this one is a little stem that's starting to grow. Now I'm going to go back to the top part where the split was. And we could make this one either behind it or in front of it. So I'm going to make it in front of it, so I'm going to go in front. Just move slowly, turning your brush. And these vines, because they're curly and go all over the place, you can do whatever you want with them. So let's say, for instance, this vine here was a curly, you wanted to curve it up more and then curve it around here. you can do that. This is your painting. You can do whatever you want. If you can't find where the lines are, you can make up your own vines. You can add less curls or more curls, whatever you want. Okay? I think that looks pretty. Okay. I'm giving it a little chunkier base of its stem, of its vine here. Okay. Now, this also had a vine that came down. And see how I stopped and then I went to the end and brought it back? That's because it was easier for my hand to go in that direction. So I'll show you again what I did. So I stopped here and then I picked it up at the end of the vine and then came back around. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm starting at the end and then I'm coming back to meet it. It's just because it's the turning angles are a little bit tricky. So coming back around. See, that got a little bit fat right there. Now, even though I can see it through the pink, I'm not going to glob on a bunch of paint right now. I'm going to let this totally dry, and then I'm going to go back in and just touch up some of the areas that need a second coat or just need a little touch up. Now, this vine might be coming from another pumpkin down here. You got pumpkin, and you got another vine that's kind of going along the pumpkin patch. So we're going to color this one in too. So again, I went to the end of it and then came back into the stem. So one thing I'm noticing is I'm starting to get like my brush will get heavy, so I'm wiping off all the paint on my brush and I'm just grabbing some from the very tip because I'm just using the very tip of my brush in these smaller areas of painting the stem. Grabbing some more paint on the tip of my brush. Some of these are really tiny, so I don't want too much paint. Going back and filling in any stems that I passed by. You're going to get really good at turning your paintbrush with your fingers. Those are the fine motor skills. Okay, it's starting to look like some vines. And I'm smoothing out any areas where I have rivers built up. You know, where I can see the sides of paint that's really glopped on there. If it's in the tips, don't worry about it too much. Okay, so that is that. Let's go on to the next step. Okay, we want to wipe off our paint and rinse our brush good. Let's go back to our big brush, the 1/2 inch flat. Okay, now we're going to grab some actual pumpkin orange. So grab a little bit of pumpkin orange, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the side of our brush like a painting knife. So we're going to just kind of scrape it maybe once or twice. I'm not going to do too much with that. Scrape another part and another part. We're just giving it some abstract coloring. A little splotch here, some through here. Doesn't have to be on every one. Okay, now we're going to mix a couple more colors. We're going to create a little lighter pink. So grab one of your empty circles on your palette and mix some pink and white. Create a little lighter color of pink. Wipe off your brush so it's a little drier. I don't want it to be soaked with paint. Grab a little bit of the pink, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to kind of scuff some pink. Think of it that way, scuffing. Just kind of scraping some pink, some light pink into these areas. We're going to scuff back here. Follow along the sections and the lines that we created. So don't do it on top of any of the lines that we drew with our tracer. Okay. You can do it along the lines. That's fine. Ooh, I like that. That looks good. That looks almost like a knife painting. So grab a little bit of magenta and create a little bit of wet marks. Maybe one up high. That got a little blended in there, so I'm going to try to dab it right on top of it. Yeah. So this is where we have some of the wetness on our painting that we want. So I'm going to do dab, dab. Dab, dab. This looks really good. I really like the chunky magenta on it. I'm going to do it right here. Okay. Maybe a little bit. Let's see, should we do it right there or there? Maybe a little right here. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. Wipe that off on your paper towel. Rinse it out. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Go back to our middle or our small flat brush. And before we put our metallic gold on the stem, I just want to just make sure that it's, you know, a nice solid color. So I'm just going to kind of go back through and paint, try to make it a flat paint, not too, I don't want to create more rivers, but just give it a nice solid color of brown. Then we're going to go through and make the gold be the highlight. It'll be really pretty. So if you need to do this, go ahead and very lightly paint in your second coat. And if you don't need to, then you can skip this step. Or you can sit back and relax and watch me do it. Okay, I wanted to get this spot right here because I really could see the pink through that vine right there. That vine got a little wider than I wanted it to be, but that's okay. That's how paintings go sometimes. We make a little mark. I could erase it and paint over it, but it's fine. It doesn't matter, and I don't want to change my whole painting. I've got a lot of good going on in my painting right now. I like it. One nice thing about acrylic paint is that it does dry very quickly, a lot faster than any of the other mediums pretty much. But even acrylic paint can take a while to dry sometimes, and if you have a blow dryer or a heat gun, you can dry it really quickly. You just have to be careful with the heat gun. Just leave it on low, move the air around, don't let it just sit in one spot where it can wrinkle your paint, because it's actually, heat guns are used to remove paint also. So you don't want it to be removing your paint. Okay, I think my second coat looks pretty good. Now at this point you can either use a hairdryer to dry some of these chunky pieces that you laid on here, or a heat gun if you have it, or take a break for about 10-15 minutes and just let it completely dry before you do these next steps. Okay? Okay, using my big 1/2 inch flat brush, I'm going to mix a little bit of, I'm going to make some light orange. So I'm going to take a scoop of orange and a scoop of white. A little bit more orange. I mean, a little bit more white. I want to make it a little lighter orange. Okay, I'm going to get all of the paint out of the center of the brush so it's not too thick. Now with this, because I'm kind of jumping back and forth around this vine that goes in front of the pumpkin, I want there to be a smooth color like this pink, this dark pink and the light pink. So I'm going to do that with this orange. So I'm going to scuff right over the top of this, and I'm going to go back and paint that over again. But I want some, kind of some solid orange coloring through here. So I'm holding my brush this way, flat, and I'm moving my arm back and forth and my wrist. Okay, so I'm scraping back and forth this way and this way. I want some to go right through here, a little bit on the back end here. We just want to give a good abstract chunkiness to this pumpkin. I really like the light orange. This is pretty. I want it right through here too. So you see I'm grabbing a new scoop of orange, a little bit of orange each time I'm putting a chunk down somewhere. I think just right on the edge here. Yeah, just right on the edge. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, one trick I'm going to show you, and I'll use my little flat brush for this, the 1/4 inch one. Okay, baby bear. I'm going to dry it off, and see I have this line going through in front of this stem. So I'm just going to kind of brush through that so I don't have those paint lines. Okay, I don't want paint lines going through that because I want this vine to be in front of the pumpkin. So I kind of got one a little bit right there. And then, so anywhere else that you can kind of just brush the paint line away. We'll go back over it with color, but just to smooth out, we don't want it to appear that the pumpkin lines are in front of the vine. And that's just a trick that we can use to make sure that it doesn't do that. Now I'm going to grab my brown, my burnt sienna, and I'm going to go back through and paint over some of these spots again with my brown. And that's all we're doing, is we're just touching up the vine in spots that had the light orange painted over it. And you can see by what we did before, by brushing the brush strokes away, it makes it a lot smoother, and you're not fighting those lines, the brush strokes, and it looks like that vine is in front of the pumpkin. Oops, I'm getting my headset in the way here. Sorry about that. Okay, that looks really good. Okay, I think I'm done with that part. Okay, wipe your brush up on your paper towel. Go ahead and rinse it. Now, we are ready for some of our detail. So grab your little liner brush. And what I'm going to say is grab a little bit of white and brown. We're going to make our little curly cues a little lighter colored because they were the new little curlies that grabbed onto the ground so that the vine could keep growing. Actually, I'm going to wipe that off and grab some again. Just kind of roll your brush in it and pull it through. That gives it a nice point. And just kind of dot it along. Now these seem very see-through, and we might end up putting a little bit of the gold with it to give it a little more of a pop. So if you can kind of see what I'm doing, I'm going around. I'm not just doing this. I'm not taking my brush and just making circles. I'm following it, and then I'm picking my brush up and I'm going to the other side and I'm bringing it back. The reason is because our brush, as we move it, it starts flattening out and it gets wider and wider. And so in our circle, we don't want it to just be this big smudge. We want it to have the roundness of the curly. And I think I lost where some of my other curlies are. I think there might be one right here. Oh, there's one down here. Yep, I think there's one inside here. I'm going to wipe that off. That didn't look very good. So if you have something that's wet that you, my wet wipes, something that's wet that's on dry paint behind it, and you feel like you made a mistake or you don't like it and you want to get it off real quick, this is how you do it. You take a wet wipe and just wipe that part off. So see, the background is totally dry. My stem is dry, and so I was able to just wipe that off. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's get, actually let's do the gold last. Let's take our white, since we have white out. Let's do our large brush. And this is kind of a highlighting stage. So get it dry on your paper towel. Grab a little bit of your white, not where any of the colors are. Just a little bit of white. And we're going to scuff some of the white onto here. Okay, that was almost too much white. Yeah, we're just going to scuff some white on here. I'm going to turn it upside down so I can get some of these areas. I am barely touching the pumpkin. Barely. Unless I have like no paint, then I'm scraping it. I'm going to do that with a little bit of the pink, which was the base color that we had. So I'm going to touch up some areas with pink. Not the light pink, just the regular first color pink that we had. I'm leaving my brush very loose. By leaving it very loose, I'm letting it kind of go where it wants to go with a little bit of guidance from me. For some reason I'm getting water dripping. That could be from my brush, so be careful that you don't have brush loaded or water loaded up in your brush because it can drip onto your painting. Okay, I love some of the thickness of this. I love it. I love what's working here. It's almost like you have the pumpkin is just melting color off of it. But it's abstract, so it's not an exact replica of what a pumpkin would look like. It's our fun Halloween fall festival type of image. Okay, I like it. Now, let's get into some of our gold. I don't really have any spots left except for maybe this one right here is pretty dry. Okay, with this beautiful shimmery gold color. Now, use your small flat brush. Get the water out of it. Okay. And what I like to do is think of the sun shining down on top of the pumpkin, and so you're highlighting the stem. So I would use about that much paint on my brush, and I'm going to go around the top part of it. But this is a favorite, so have fun with it. If you end up painting the whole part of the vine, it's okay. This is a really fun and pretty color to play with. That's what really makes this pumpkin feel magical. Maybe this was the pumpkin that Cinderella used for her chariot. Okay, I feel like this needs to have a lot more gold in it here. Because it's like the beginning of the vine. It's where the most life is in the vine. Okay, there. That feels better. I like that. That looks better. Okay, and then we'll also do it along the bottom vine here. There was a couple little ones I missed up here. Okay, when you think you're done, kind of step back, look at it, and see where you might want to even anything out or touch up anything of the gold or of any of the other colors. And I think what I want to do, I think I did this last time, was use the gold on the little curlies. I think I liked it better because it stood out more than the lighter color. So I'm going to try that. Yeah, I like it already. So just use the very tip of your brush if you do this. I'm going to make a curly here that I didn't have before. I feel like there's this space here needs to have a little balance. I think I like this gold color, and I like the brown as its base underneath, because it would have by itself it would be very see-through. But I think just the gold on the vine is beautiful, and I think it makes this painting, the magical, the magic pumpkin, I think it really gives it its pizzazz. So I am kind of covering up even more with the gold. I like it a lot. And you can decide for your painting if you want it just as a little highlight on your stem, or if you really want, you know, more of it on there like what I'm doing. I love it when I feel like, ooh, my painting is starting to get really pretty. That's what I'm talking about when in the beginning when I said don't judge your painting until the very end, because that's when you kind of really you look at it with your details that you're putting on, and you can say, okay, it needs more here or there, and you can really give yourself a more a fair critique on how you did. Ooh, I love this teal, purple teal color on the background too. It really sets off the pinks and the gold. I love it. Okay, I think I'm ready to sign my name. And I have some Posca pens that I love that make it really nice. I don't know if my gold would be dark enough on this. Let me see. Yep, it is. Okay. Okay. I like it. Pink mud is done. I hope you have enjoyed painting this seasonal painting, that it can decorate your home in a lovely way and bring you some joy and sunshine. And I hope that you paint with me again soon. Have a very blessed day.